everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm here today to wrap up my reading from 2025. So I don't think that 2025 was one of my greatest reading years. And that's interesting because I read a lot of great books in 2025, but when I went to make this list of my top reads, I didn't really have a lot of them that stood out to me as reads that will be the ones I remember years and years from now. So I thought that was interesting. And I think overall, I still enjoyed my year of reading, but I didn't have a lot of standout books. So I don't know what that says about the books I chose to read in 2025, but I did want to list a few facts for you right now so that you can put into context my reading stats a bit when I tell you the books that were my top reads. So I read 74 books in 2025. My goal was 75. My reading kind of fell apart in November. I don't really know why. It just happened. And then I wasn't in the mood by the end of December to force myself through a couple more books just to get that number up higher. So when I looked at some numbers, I thought it was really interesting, and I just wanted to share a couple of those with you. In 2017, I read only 37 books. So that was where I first started recording my reading for booktube, I believe, I thought the context of that was really interesting, that I've gone from reading, before I was actively recording my reading and sharing it, I was reading about 37 books a year. And as I have continued to have my channel, my books have increased. And I read on average 75 books a year. So for instance, in 2022, I read 76 books. 2023, I read 76 books. 2024, I read 75. So I'm pretty consistent along there. Although this year I decided to put my reading goal to 70 instead of 75 because I just wanted to hit it more comfortably and not feel any pressure if something goes awry again in 2026, where I'm just trying to hit that number and it's looming over my head in some way. But it's interesting because the amount of pages is always around 22,000 or so. So the lowest was in 2022. I read 76 books, but I only read about 19,855 pages. And then this year I read 22,105 pages. So, 22 to 19 to 24,000 in that range is around where I've been reading in terms of page count over the last 4-ish years. So there we go. My average rating for this year was 3.9. I don't feel like I handed out a lot of 5 stars this year. I think I was pretty stingy with my 5 stars. All of the books that I am talking about here in this best books of 2025 were 5 stars. So you can rest assured that the only ones I picked out to talk to you about today were 5-star reads. Okay, so I'm going to get to them. Like I said, I don't have as many books as I have in previous best books of the year videos. But I really think that you kind of have to go with the year you're in, and I just didn't have a year where a lot of books stood out. I will say I did do the Fresh Reads project this year in 2025, which was reading newer releases, 2023 to 2025 releases. I ended up reading 9 2025 releases, which for me is a lot of new releases from the current year to be reading in that year. So I made an extensive wrap-up video of that project. I will link it down below if you're interested in learning more about any of those books. Only one of those books is on this list. So let's get started. My top fiction read of 2025 was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Now, this book was published in 2021, so it is not a 2025 release, but I read it in February of 2025. It was a mesmerizing book to me. I absolutely adored it. And it stayed my top for the whole year. Nothing shook it off its podium. I also went to see the Hamnet film in December. Loved that too. So I just, this book became an all-time favorite. So if all I got out of 2025 was reading a book that became an all-time favorite, like my top 5 ever novel, I'm happy with that. Hamnet is a stunning story. If you are unfamiliar with the plot, which I find hard to believe at this juncture, but if you are, I will give you a brief synopsis. We mostly follow a woman who is Shakespeare's wife and their children. And one of the children passes away and becomes the inspiration for Shakespeare's Hamlet. This novel is about grief, and it is about being a parent and losing a child. It is extremely emotional. It is extremely raw. It is absolutely gloriously written. There is not a sentence that is misplaced in this novel. It beautifully shows the Tudor England, and I think the film also does that. So if you are interested in Tudor England and what it would have been like during that time to live in London and to live in Stratford, please check those out. It's not long. It's a glorious novel. It was probably, for me and my personality and the type of reader I am, it was a perfect book. So it actually made me question my top novel of all time. So you know how good it is for me if I'm questioning my favorite novel of all time. It didn't knock it off, but it was very close. And it's number 2 for me. It's number 2. So I loved it. Nonfiction, I ended up picking 2 books to share with you because both of them were brilliant. So Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Claire Dederer, which I already talked about extensively. Oh, I was wrong. There are 2 books from my Fresh Reads project on this list. Monsters, A Fan's Dilemma by Claire Dederer is one of them. That was a 2024 release. It is about the dilemma of loving someone's art but not liking them as an artist. If they've done something bad, if they've said something bad, if they've been racist, if they've been sexist, what do we do as a fan when we are negotiating between our love for someone's art and our responsibility as a human consuming their art to know whether or not they were a good person in quotes. So that is that book. It's brilliant. I talk about it more extensively in a vlog, not in a vlog, but in the Fresh Reads Project video. The other one is Orwell's Roses by Rebecca Solnit. If you would have told me that I would have given a book that's primarily about George Orwell 5 stars, I would have said, no, I don't think so, because I'm not a huge George Orwell fan. I've read one of his books, 1984, which probably is on par to be one of the most depressing books I've ever read in my life. Other than that, I haven't read his other work, but Rebecca Solnit and her way of weaving her life with the subject's life, with facts, with current events is, just one of my favorite things to read. And I just loved learning about George Orwell, learning about his garden, learning about roses, learning about references to roses in literature, learning about George Orwell's political leanings, his nonfiction essays, all the things that he did. Rebecca Solnit just wrote it in a way that made me want to read it. And so, again, a brilliant book. So, in terms of 2025 releases, The top 2025 release that I read this year was Old Soul by Susan Barker. This book is a ride. It is a journey. It is highly entertaining. It's propulsive. You want to know what's going to happen next. It is multiple perspectives. We are following a man as he is searching out this woman. This woman is predatory. She has hurt someone he loves. He is trying to find all the other people in the world that she has also targeted one of their loved ones for. You have her, the actual woman being pursued's perspective. You have multiple perspectives from all around the world. It was just so entertaining. I really enjoyed it. It is a thriller, but it's literary for the most part. And I just thought it was a really entertaining read. I just was wrapped right up in the book and really couldn't put it down until I finished it. Similarly, the Hamnet. Okay, so my last recommendation is an audiobook. I always talk about an audiobook in my wrap-ups because I think audiobooks are so important and that everyone should understand that accessibility to listening to stories is crucial to make reading fair and equitable for everybody. Okay, so I didn't have a particular audiobook that stood out necessarily, but I did want to talk about the Marwood and Lovett series by Andrew Taylor. So I've ranted about this every time I've read one of these books. This was the fifth book, or fourth or fifth, anyway, in the series of his, I think fifth. I love this series and I love listening to it on audio. So I've read one in physical copy and the rest I've listened to on audio. I love the narrator. I love the way he narrates. I think these books are so good to listen to on audio because it's like this entertaining mystery. If you don't know about this series, it is set right after the Great Fire in London. So James Marwood is our main character. He is such a good-hearted man who is trying to do his best and follows his instincts and tries to negotiate this very complex world of working for King Charles II while also trying to keep his head and not become embroiled in a whole bunch of the drama and politics of this time period. And while he's doing that, he, in the beginning of the series, he is proposed together with Cat Lovett. Cat is this amazingly self-possessed woman of the time. You know, in the 1600s, women were not necessarily represented in this way, and I just love her character. They both end up helping each other in every book, and hopefully there's a little bit of a love story blooming between them. Very, very slow burn, but the characters in these stories are characters that I love. I love hearing about them. I love learning about them. And I love listening to these audiobooks. So I highly recommend, if you like mysteries, if you like historical fiction, this is that put together. The mysteries are always very, very well thought out. They're not, oh, this guy's found another dead body, because it just feels like the way they present the murders that they could have plausibly happened on some level. And I think that works really well for me. I don't like the kind of he done it, she done it style necessarily, but I love like the complexity of these different characters that are layered in. And then there's murder mysteries or problems that have to be solved by the team, even though they're not officially a team, but they work like a team. Yeah. Okay, so that is 2025 reading for me. That is it. I have to say again that, I think some years you just get a lot of bangers and books that you're going to remember forever, and books that, just like are the best for you. And then other years you're only going to get a few, and the rest of them are going to kind of fade into the background. And so that is the year that I had for reading. But it's not too shabby. And I will be back again soon with another video. Thank you so much for watching.